how market makers will hedge themselves, how players will be positioned for that, how it will be priced, all of that kind of stuff is going to add fuel to the fire of massive moves, which is basically what this middle paragraph's talking about. The big thing that everyone's going to be waiting and watching for is what's known as a gamma squeeze. I've talked about this a lot in the past, where you look at the options expiry on the week of the S&P 500 ES. You often see very one-directional moves that go like straight up and then they stop and then they go straight down and then they stop and they go straight up. Because as price moves through certain levels, market makers who are hedged have to go in the direction of the trend to protect themselves. So in a really simple sense, if you buy call option for Bitcoin, it means you're betting for the market to go up. A market maker will sell that to you. So in effect, they're expecting the market to not go up. Either it goes sideways or it goes down, right? If the market starts to go up, they're suddenly exposed because the market's going against them and they're potentially losing a lot of money. So what they do is they have to actually get exposure to long Bitcoin. So they either buy spot, buy the ETF, or get long on perps so that they can have long exposure so that if it keeps going up and it's one of these strong moves, they might lose a little bit on one side, but they make money on the other side and they stay delta neutral. The effect of that when it happens en masse is a positive feedback loop, which is known as a gamma squeeze, where more buying creates more buying, creates more buying, and they have to keep buying higher and higher prices. This also happens the opposite way too, to the downside. But of course, all that people give a shit about is on the upside. So is that going to happen right away? No, it's probably going to take months for it to build up to even be a factor, right? It's like, are these options, they're not even going to launch yet. So again, this is stuff that's a while away. So, most crucial factor that ties all this together. I think this is the part I like most about it, and this is the part I want to zoom in on. Bitcoin itself cannot be diluted to accommodate this newfound leverage. This is the big difference between Bitcoin and really like stocks, obviously. And obviously it's why it's more akin to gold, even though you can make more gold. You can't just issue new gold shares, right? Compare this to stocks like GME or AMC, where management can issue new shares to exploit pricing anomalies, putting a cap on the stock's rise. Bitcoin can't do that. You might ask, but Jeff, what about commodities like oil or natural gas? Aren't they comparable? If so, why is Bitcoin different? The key difference is most physical commodities have expiration dates, meaning they tend to trade with the futures market, not the spot market. Futures market, unlike spot markets, vary in gross notional exposure based on expiration dates, net interest physical and paper, so they don't allow focused participation in one direction, i.e. people trade both long and short in the curve, physical as paper. These markets are subject to supply manipulation by groups like OPEC and others. Bitcoin is different. So like I said like a minute ago, because Bitcoin's a digital asset, people don't really care about taking delivery of it at the end of a futures contract, which is totally different to every other commodity we've ever seen. This is a once in a lifetime or first ever event. So if you look at the futures, like if you were to go to like crude oil futures market, it's massive. It's orders of magnitude bigger than spot, and there is no perpetual market. So what he's saying there is that in crypto, in Bitcoin, whatever happens to spot, futures track that. The opposite is true in commodities. Whatever happens in the futures market, because that's perceived to be the better predictor, because people are looking at a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month time frame, and there's a lot more open interest, they're placing their bets on what's going to happen over there. And so the spot market actually tends to follow that. Crypto is the opposite, because we have perpetual futures, which in this example is like spot and spot itself. I'll explain this again. But first thing, Bitcoin's futures market is 2.2 billion. The perpetual market is 16.7. So the perpetual market is almost 10 times bigger. It's about 8 times bigger than the dated futures. When you add spot onto that, because remember, perpetual futures are the same as spot when you're comparing them to dated futures, because neither of them have an expiry. So if you take the total open interest of perpetuals and you look at you don't have open interest on spot obviously, but you look at the volume and you compare that to the dated futures, Bitcoin's dated futures market is fucking tiny. Totally different to oil, gas, gold, anything else. So that's why you can't compare them in that sense. That's why what we're going to see when this options market gets big enough, we're going to see something that's never been seen before. So on one side, this doesn't mean you can just expect it to be bullish. It could be anything. But the potential is massive. So like he says, first time in financial world we see regulated leverage on a perpetual commodity that's truly supply constrained. Things will likely get wild. In such scenarios, regulated markets may shut down. But the remarkable thing about Bitcoin is that there will always be a paralyzed decentralized market can't be shut down, which is also super G. You know, they do, like they halt GME. You know, you've all seen the fucking GME short squeeze, right? And the proper one in 2021, not that cash grab from a couple of months ago. Well, imagine that happening on Bitcoin, except they can't turn off the exchange, because if you turn off the ETF trading, okay, fine. Binance still exists, Bybit still exists, Coinbase still exists. So that's what he means when he says things could get wild. And that is, again, this is going to be a long way away, but I wanted to talk about it today because put it on your radars. Super interesting. Definitely something to keep an eye on. All right, that's Bitcoin. Quickly, tomorrow, if you're looking at the dates for the diary, you day traders, flash manufacturing PMI and services PMI will be a little bit, something definitely interesting to watch. A bit of economic data about how the manufacturing and services space are doing. Yeah, a little bit. Thursday, this is GDP, but it won't move the market because it's final GDP. GDP comes out in 3 releases. You have advance, was it advance actual and final? Or preliminary advance and final? I don't know. Anyway, final is the last one. Yeah, advanced, preliminary, and final. Yeah. So it's the one that's going to have the least impact. Unemployment claims matters a little bit, but it comes out every week, so not as much. Powell speaking, definitely. Keep an eye on that Thursday. But the big one would be inflation on Friday, I would say. Overall, a sort of semi-big week for economic data. Plus, don't forget, the the options quarterly expiry is this Friday for BTC. So when you have these news events and stuff happening going into an options expiry, you can often see a compression where you might see spikes, the volatility either side, but then it returns back to compressing and consolidating. Next. Now we're going to get into some alts. So we've seen some leaders. We've seen some alts starting to move here. And in particular, we've seen Sui's obviously been the big one in terms of the biggest move over the last little while. So Sui bottomed out as the market did in early August, moved up into a high, back into a higher low, and then has just exploded from there. So what happens next? Well, Sui is most likely going to go to new all-time high. I'm not saying right from here, but the odds on this going to new lows is extremely, extremely low from here at this point. So you'd be looking at it to form some kind of consolidation or pullback or higher low. But the point is, I mentioned this on altcoin streams in the past few weeks, and I mentioned it, well, I think when I was on stream with Professor Ayush, and with when I did a crossover with Sillard. Meme coins are not the one you'd be expecting to move first. It should be some of these other ones, these utility coins or whatever. Reason being, it's just very simple. It's positioning. Most people will be holding memes. Most people will be holding memes from bad prices, and memes were the last thing to top. Pepe topped in May. Pepe topped in May. Sui and all those other ones topped in March or April. So they've had longer. They basically topped over here, right? While the memes went higher, many of them. So they've had longer to pull back, longer to consolidate, and longer to build bases for the next rally, which is why you're seeing Pepe do so bad in relation comparatively to something like, Sui. So here's where we're at now. Price-wise, pullbacks, there's a couple different paths I could see. You basically, and I should just make these more simple. Right. Okay. Either you're going to see pull back into standard higher low, or you're going to see full move all the way back to the bottom as it goes back to the lows and has to have one more touch before we go higher. And if it continues, I think if it gets through that daily order block, then you're probably looking at SUI to move towards its highs. Now, the thing about that is, if it hits those highs too soon, you might get a repeat of what many of these coins do when they have a full bull move, a sharp pullback, a deep pullback, and then a fast rally again, which you can see it. Where's one? I think I'm pretty sure Fetch has done this in the past. If you look at this, yeah, here. So this is one of the things you want to watch out for. In 2021, we obviously had our main big bull move, and then we had many coins that went higher in 2021 later in the year, but they did not go significantly higher. Right? They made new highs, but then they chopped around, and then essentially the tops were here, and they just chopped around the second time. That's very similar to what something like SUI may have done or be doing. So you want to keep an eye on that. Don't forget, many of these coins, their only target is all-time high. Like their only target is wherever there's going to be liquidity, wherever there's going to be people buying breakouts thinking, oh, this is it, bull market, off it goes. Some stuff will go beyond all-time high, but for some others, I would say many of them, the target is there. If they can get it there, that's as far as they want. Best thing you could see would be some kind of pullback into consolidation for any of these coins. Don't forget the possibility of pullback all the way to the lows. I think it's unlikely for SUI, but it's not impossible. But I would say no lower. I would say the bottom's in. I wouldn't see it going lower than that with this move that it's had. Aptos. So some of these other ones are quite interesting because Aptos and Phantom were the two others that, not just in terms of price movement, but they've actually had some, a little bit of a narrative around them as well, as people are kind of talking about this utility coins, fuck the meme coins, we're going to look at other stuff, and these are going to be Solana killers, and they're layer one, blah, blah, blah. My view on all this is that fundamentally it's all shite, and they're real, right? The tech that all these projects are building is real. I just don't believe that it's needed, or that the market cares, or that will care, because I think the main use cases for crypto are going to be Bitcoin, clearly, and not that that's a use case, but Bitcoin's use case is store of value, you get that, and stablecoins. I think that there's far too much focus by these teams about like fucking arbitrary stuff like TPS, transaction per second, how fast can we make it, which is not even necessary anyway. People talk about, because it's kind of the easiest way to attack this. You're like, oh look, we do more transactions per second than Ethereum, therefore we're better than... No, you're not. Adoption. ETH's TPS has been relatively shit for a long time. There have been dozens of chains that are faster than ETH in terms of TPS, and yet ETH is still bigger than them all. Why? Because think about it. Like, you don't care, I don't care. The vast majority of people don't care whether something has 150 TPS or 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000. There's obviously like minimums you need to have. You obviously don't want it to be too low or too shitty, but like this stuff is just fucking dumb. It's like arguing over, I don't know, like logos for your fucking different companies rather than actually something that people will want, which is whatever the apps are being built on them. And this is, I think, the eternal problem with crypto. It's far more profitable to start another infrastructure or layer one project than it is to actually build an app. Because if you start Aptos, people, investors like VCs, will look at that and say, holy shit, layer one blockchain, buzzword, hot thing, we want that, infra, and they will invest, and you'll raise hundreds of millions of dollars, or tens of millions of dollars. But now that leaves you with having fucking 50 layer ones and nobody building anything on them and nobody fucking using them. So that's pointless, right? The whole point of crypto should be that you have apps, right? Games, decentralized exchanges, fucking whatever. Put all this stuff on chains, like, so anyway. That's my rant for the day. So the tech and all this stuff is real. I just don't think it's necessary. Or it's gonna. I don't think it's as killer as the teams seem to think it is, because they're just trying to raise money, right? So anyway, Aptos. I would fancy Aptos to move to $10. So I think that it probably will go all the way up to here. If it closes back below these red lines here, and some of these you're watching, like whether you're even trading them or not, I'm watching these just as a general view on the market. Because we've had a strong trend all the way up, and really what matters is it going to hold this level or not? Is it going to hold the breakout and then go higher? If it does, you're going to see it move up into those highs. And I think at that point, you'll probably see the first proper pullback into a higher low. If not, if we fall back below here, back below that level is where you're going to see the whole thing retrace. And then it's probably a sign that we're going to go sideways and have to go again. That's really what you should be watching for here. Like, is this, right? Is this the beginning of major move? Or is it this again? Where you rally up, you come back. Right? And, you see this over and over and over again. When markets are trying to come out of bearish phases into bullish, there's many, many attempts to rally, false rallies, kind of getting people excited and then cucking them. So that's all that really matters here. Aptos is very close to that breakout point. Another thing, if you watched the weekend workshop, which you should definitely go back and check. If you didn't, what you're going to see here are potentially a lot of multi-candle false breakouts, potentially. So how does that look? Looks a bit like this. I don't really need this trend line. You have a breakout, right? It breaks out. It closes above. That gets people to go long. You have multiple days outside of that, and then you lose it. So watching this red line closely is what I'll be doing, and is important to keep an eye on. Phantom had a nice move up as well. Again, Phantom was put in a nice bottoming formation at the lows. Low, push lower, higher low, broken above, broken many structure points. Has not filled this gap above, came up into this resistance, strong rejection of it. So what you want to watch on the low time frames, that should lead to this, and then a bounce into a lower high, and then you're all the way down. That's the expectation of what it should do. If you see anything different, that's a sign. Let's say Phantom chops around, tries to go lower, is unable to go lower, and it starts to build through here. Well, that's a really good sign that Phantom is actually building value at a higher level, a bit like it did over here, and is probably actually going to go higher again. So, a couple levels to watch. The daily market structure, I have it marked there. Some gaps below, which you can see on the daily chart. If it does come back down, these are some retest points that you have your eye on. And of course, like the rest of them, is it going to hold and go higher, or is it going to fully retrace the whole thing? I actually lean towards the going higher aspect, because I do get the sense that there's this bit of disbelief right now, because we've had so many rallies that fail. This rally failed, this rally failed, this rally failed, even this one rally failed, that one failed, this one failed, right? And so the idea of, oh, this one's going to fail too, it's classic disbelief. And despite the fact that Phantom has gone up a lot, and by the way, like this daily candle is definitely a bearish, reaction. I wouldn't be piling into longs on Phantom by any means. I would wait for some consolidation. But Phantom, Aptos, and Sui. I picked those three out because they're the three of the best performers in the past week or so. How many people are actually holding them? I certainly wasn't. Most of you probably weren't. I know some of you were. I've been chatting to you. But the point is, the fact that these non-consensus sort of semi-random coins are pumping is not like a top signal. It's actually, if anything, a signal that we're going to go a lot higher, because people are still not going to be allocated to these. Now, obviously, there's been some FOMO into Phantom at the highs here, and they're getting flushed out. But I still don't believe that this is somehow a sign of a bearish market. If the entire market was just randomly spiking and pumping, that'd be a bit more concerning. But it's really not. Look at total 3. So when you exclude just those outliers, Phantom, Sui, Aptos, whatever, and you just look at the whole, there's nothing crazy going on here. I mean, total 3 is moving pretty much the same as Bitcoin, pretty much the same as Ethereum. In fact, probably it's slightly stronger than Ethereum. Yeah, Ethereum's still Ethereum. I won't rag on it too much this week. But I think that a lengthy chop and very rotational market is what we're in for. So what that means is People will now probably start to try and short-term trade Phantom and Sui and Aptos because they're the momentum coins. I think there's probably going to be a week where they are choppy, this week, let's say, and other stuff will start to run. As long as Bitcoin is not breaking down, you're going to see other alts play catch up. This is this very rotational market where if you still, in 2024, in September, if you still think that there's a thing called an alt season, just fucking quit. Go home. Do something else. It should be so obvious right now and like super clear. We do not just go, everything goes up together. You're going to see specific periods of outperformance by individual coins or groups of coins, and that's always going to be, it's going to be the way it will always be. Because the idea of, oh look, alt season, one alt's gone up, so I'm going to buy anything, it's never going to happen again. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, right? Are there going to be periods where the total 3 goes up? Yes, like obviously. When total 3 next goes up, right? When total 3 next breaks out and starts to go higher, let's say it starts doing that, right? If you see total 3 doing this, well, obviously most altcoins are going to go up. But they're not going to all go up equally. There's going to be many of them. You know, if total 3 is like that up here, I'd imagine that by this point, Phantom and Sui and Aptos are already done, and their charts are probably going to look like that. But then you look at fucking Pepe, it could be like that. So you're going to see this dispersion, these alligator jaws. We have one going one way, one going the other way. Very important to keep an eye on that if you're going to be doing the whole altcoin trading thing. What else? Lengthy chop, I think, is likely. Yeah, so let me go back to some of these. Sui as the example. Just get a chart with no drawings on it. I think after it has, probably when it runs into the order block above or a bit of liquidity up there, whatever, after it has like its bit of chop, you're going to see a lot of this. And this doesn't seem like much, but if the rest of the market's bullish and going higher and all this, this could be 1 week, this could be 2 weeks, this could be 3 weeks, where it's not bearish, but it's not going higher. And don't be surprised if you see that, and even if you see it going slightly lower and lower, and then having a run again. Because it's a classic, example of the thing that leads us out of the bearish phase. It will cool off. It will probably cool off into some kind of bullish formation, and then it will continue, but it will have weeks of brutal chop in between. So we're probably getting close-ish to that. And I think we've bottomed for Sui. I would say that fairly confidently. I would say for Phantom, my expectation as well would be that this is bottom. Again, this is all in the assumption that, I'm not saying Phantom's a great coin or that bull market's back or anything like that. I'm saying based on this, do I see any reason why why this would be a false rally that leads to a new low? That seems unlikely. I think if Phantom's going to do that, it's just going to underperform, right? Where it just goes like this and everything else rips way higher and Phantom doesn't actually perform well. But that wouldn't be, the new low could come next year. That's like the worst case scenario for something like Phantom, I would expect. So it doesn't mean Phantom's good, but I do think the bottom's in for now. And it's probably a signal to other coins to get a move on and to start, running. Another thing to watch, 4-hour trends. So, first of all, daily trends. Very, very important and a good thing to watch is the daily trend. So usually when you see these type of moves, if they're actually going to be a false move that leads to new lows, the daily trend wouldn't look like that. Let me explain. If you see, maybe I can't even see it on, I probably can't see it on Phantom because it doesn't have much price history. Maybe Fetch will show it. If I go back and look on Fetch, fucking wrong one. Let's just do this. Over here. Something like this. This is a great example because this is exactly what you're trying to avoid, right? The exact thing that you're hoping to avoid if you're bullish is this, where it looks like it's bottoming out, right? It rallies, it breaks structure and all of that, and then it fails, goes to new lows and bleeds forever. So what were the telltale signs that this could have happened on Fetch? Well, very clearly, it was a bearish daily trend. 200, above the 100, above 50. This is quite clearly a bearish trend. So all that was a retest in a downtrend. So if you go back to Phantom or any of them, but I'll explain it with Phantom first. That's much less likely to happen now. You can see, right? Fetch pushed into its bands and was retesting them and got a little above them. Phantom has pushed into them, consolidated, broken above close. These are about to cross as well, so they're about to no longer be bearish. So it's super, super, super unlikely that this is just some anomaly bounce before new lows. I actually think it's got more of a bottoming type of structure to it. Same as Sui. Sui's already crossing, right? So again, the likelihood of this being just, oh, this is just a trap before new lows. No, it's fucking not. Now, what you should expect is if these all cross bullish and you see it, having a nice slow correction back that holds and the bands catch up, that might be a good time to buy it, yeah. It doesn't mean that you have to fucking chase in here, although the momentum is going to make it continue. The point is, these moves are bigger than you would expect to see in a bear market or a bearish move. It literally had the opportunity here. It tested the 200. The bands were all bearish. It tried to lose them. That's when it should have went to new lows. Because it didn't. Market's telling you something. Again, it's not telling you to buy this fucking thing here. But as you look for other coins, and if you say, all right, we really only have 3 paths. We can trend up, we can revisit the lows, or we can go to new lows. So let me look at Aptos for this, because I think Aptos is a good example of this because it's a bit weaker than the other two relatively. You can see here. In fact, let me get a fresh chart. And so if you look at Aptos, so something like Aptos could absolutely be still doing that bearish path, right? If it chopped around like this and went back below, well then the bands are all still bearish and you'd expect it to go to new lows. So when you zoom out and you look back and say, how likely is it that it goes to new lows from here? It's retraced its entire bull market move twice. So this is obviously not a good coin, right? It's made a high and then a lower high, and then it made a sweep and a lower low. Aptos is a piece of shit, technically, like the chart. Regardless of what narrative springs up about Aptos, this is not really a great sign unless it's able to break above 19. Because otherwise, you'd expect it could have a nice trend, but you'd expect it to make yet another lower high and then just, that's it, done, right? Because how many times are people going to fall for the same thing? They're not going to fall for it over and over again. So, with that said, I think it's unlikely that Aptos goes lower. I think that it's done most of what it should have done to bottom out. I think you're probably looking at Aptos to go higher over time, but it's not like Sui or Phantom where the bands are much closer to crossing. You could see a negative rejection. So what you want to see from Phantom is a pullback that holds and then a new high. As soon as you see that, that's your continuation sign. And that's where I'd probably want to trade something like an Aptos. Not now. Wait for the next consolidation. A good thing to watch would be the daily bands. If it comes back and holds on the daily bands and then has a breakout, that's the important thing to watch, has a breakout, then you're looking at, this is probably its main rally. So you first have to move off the lows, then there has to be a rebuilding of positions, then you get your main rally, generally. And that main rally is the one to trade, in my opinion, and it probably takes you up to some of these inefficiency levels, some of these gaps, whatever, and you can get really nice trades in Aptos between kind of 8 and, let's call it 16. I would say right now is not a great time to go long, again, unless... The whole point is, because if you went long here, you could put a stop there, sure, and long this breakout here. But 2 things, opportunity cost. Because if you go long right now, which is fine, it's a valid breakout, there's an impulse candle. My problem is that the band, right, daily downtrend is still there. And the other problem is, if you went long there with a stop loss there, you're probably going to sit through all this chop, and you could have just bought here at the exact same price 3 weeks from now, which is most likely, and you have more confirmation because it consolidates, it holds above the bands, so on, so on, so on. The actual biggest move is going to come when the bands are bullish, right? That's you have to understand too. Like when it last reclaimed its bands over here, what did it do? It reclaimed the bands and it chopped for like 3 weeks. And I'll try and show as many examples of these as I can, that the time when the market makes its bigger move, even if it's like see here, even if it's in a bearish market where it doesn't go to doesn't break out and go to new highs, it just retests the highs and false breakouts. Where does the actual move begin? not until the bands get bullish again. The bands cross bearish. Once they fully get bullish again, you see this impulse right before it, a few days consolidation, then it accelerates. So if you're looking at, Aptos, or Aptos right now. Aptos is kind of like here, where it's trying to flip them. It might have a bit more time. It needs to consolidate. So the moral of this story is there's no rush on stuff like this just because it's moving a bit. You're not going to miss out on fucking anything. And then when you go across to Pepe, which is the kind of meme coin of choice for many, Pepe is showing this even more starkly because you've got the bands now crossing bearish on Pepe, and they have been since over here, and the 50 is now below the 200. So Pepe, best case scenario for Pepe is that it's gonna like revisit the lows and then come back up and flip, because the bands are compressed tightly. If it gets back above them, you'll see them crossing back into line for the bigger move later on. But it's quite clear to me that Pepe is going to lag, as it should, because it topped in May. Everything else topped in March, pretty much. They've had longer to accumulate, cause and effect, you know all this. And the thing you want to be watching for these is the 4-hour trend. So compare the 4-hour trend, because it's a faster moving version of the daily trend, obviously. And Pepe is trying to flip into some kind of 4-hour trend. Whereas you have these others like Sui, which are in very strong 4-hour trends that are ongoing at the moment. So the equivalent is like Pepe is over here somewhere. It's not even there. I mean, Pepe is like there, or Pepe is like here. It's on the bands compressing, trying to turn them bullish. Whereas Sui has already had its breakout. And the one you want to buy on the pullback would be Sui for a immediate 4-hour trend continuation if it pulls back into the bands and holds them. But the one you want to have your eye on for later, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, maybe a bit longer, is Pepe. Because it hasn't had its big explosive move yet. And it probably will. It's one of the most popular coins. And so I would think that it's going to chop around here and have some false, 4-hour rallies. So it might go up here one more time. The bands all go in line and it's all bullish. People go long, but it's actually too soon. It has another fake out. And then you're going to see it take off. When it's time. It doesn't seem like it's time yet. It seems like it's taken from a bearish trend, trying to consolidate, trying to reclaim, trying to turn that into an early bullish trend. Then there'll be a dip, and that's your chance to get on board. So Pepe is a good one, just not for now. And the reason why this happens as well is there's more people holding Pepe than there are Sui. That's clear. More people are holding meme coins than anything else. So all the people who bought Pepe are now going to have to sweat a little bit. They're just going to be like, fuck, I shouldn't have bought this. I shouldn't have done this. Shouldn't have done that. This fucking Pepe doesn't move while everything else is moving. This is literally what Pepe did all throughout here, right? Remember, this was October. That was the first rally. Well, Pepe went on to be the worst fucking coin in the market all the way through November, December. This is when stuff was going crazy. This is when Bonk was doing 100x. This is when Solana was doing a 10x. This is when Fetch and Akash and everything were all pumping. And what did Pepe do? Went down and bleeding for 3 months. All the way through January into February. And then, all of a sudden, it all came at once. So, you should expect vast underperformance and dead market and chop and sideways on the most popular coins. WIF also falls into this category too. You have to remember, there is no guarantee that these coins ever have a big pump again, because there's so many people all doing the exact same thing. They don't have to drop to zero. And I think Pepe is better than WIF. That's my personal opinion. They're not going to necessarily go to zero, but they are probably going to be very, very dead, because everyone wants the same thing. They're all hoping, and currently there's hope. They're like, it's fine. I'll just keep holding. Just wait. Whenever it comes, Pepe's going to pump hardest. I would not be surprised if these things didn't pump for another 6 or 12 months. Now, I think it could happen sooner, but everything sets up for these meme coins to take longer, because the only way you're going to get people to give up on their idea is through brutal chop, right? If Bitcoin's bullish, everyone's going to be so bullish to hold their meme coin, right? If Bitcoin goes to 70, goes to 80, goes to 90, people are just going to be stacking whiff. They're going to be stacking Pepe. They're like, this ready, we're going to go, it's going to take off. And everyone's trying to do the exact same thing on the exact same coin, which was the consensus coin. That is a terrible recipe. You have all the dumb people doing the same thing. It's not smart money. It's not contrarian. It's not a genius idea to pick the multi-billion-dollar, clearly hottest from the last pump meme coins like Pepe and Whiff and load up on them thinking 5x coming or 10x coming. It's fucking nonsense. So, if they're going to pump, I think they're going to pump last. It's going to be brutal. You're going to have to watch other stuff pump first. And you're probably going to see a lot of choppy, shitty price action. Any rally could fail. It might even go to new lows. Even as, like, you can see Bitcoin go higher and Whiff might even make a new low. Even if Bitcoin goes higher. And then back down again. Even as Bitcoin goes higher. And then people are going to be like, what the fuck is this Whiff thing's never going to move? And then it'll move. Right? That's kind of the... And this entire path could and probably will happen while other coins are going like this. The Suis and the stuff you never thought you wanted to buy. The non-consensus things. And then, of course, they'll go to fucking zero and the other shit will pump. But probably, I think the Pepes, the Whiffs, will be last and they will go very hard when they do. But it will not be easy. Because, again, it's consensus. Consensus means everyone thinks the same thing. That means it's either not going to happen or it's not going to happen until it's no longer consensus. Until people give up on it. Until maybe Bitcoin has topped and crashed and then they go. That's another thing, right? Imagine Bitcoin went to 100k, big crash to like 70, back up, back down, and Bitcoin looks like shit, but it's had all of its euphoric run. And then everyone's like, holy shit, the whole bull market's over. And then boom, the memes go. Like May 2021. Bitcoin had already topped out well before that. So, anyway, slightly off topic. A couple other coins, that you guys had mentioned. So I mentioned keep an eye on the 4-hour trends, 50, 100, 200, how it's developing. Keep an eye on the daily trends on top of that, because the 4-hour will build into the daily. Pendle and Injective. They were two. So Pendle, I see that Arthur Hayes sold his Pendle or part of his Pendle today, and of course it pumped. Oh my god. Literally the worst fucking trader ever. Like the best, has probably extracted more value from crypto than anybody else, but is just a terrible trader and doesn't seem to be able to admit it. He should have just stuck to inventing perps, bleeding fucking retail out of their money with leverage perpetuals, inventing the most profitable product ever in crypto. But he seems to love the idea of trading and he's just always wrong, which is remarkable. But anyway. So Pendle, I think, very sharp pullback. Took out those lows. Has reversed from there. Has not retested it on a lower time frame. So I'd have one eye on that. If it's not able to get above there, I'd have one eye on a potential retest of that level and just forming more of a bottom before it eventually runs. If not, the thing you want to see, as with any of these, is consolidation on the bands. If this pullback comes into the daily bands and it consolidates and it makes a new high, that is when these begin. I can't stress this enough, how important it is to wait for that new high. It's a very, very simple concept, but easy to miss. Waiting for that second extra break of structure is the confirmation you need for whatever trade you're going to take. Let me see if I can show you an example of this, where they're coming out of, where a coin's coming out of a bear market or coming out of a bearish phase, and the point at which, here we go. Right, so good old fetch. So you get your big rally up off the lows, right? This, when it came back here, could have went to new lows. It didn't. Instead, it consolidated. But even consolidating here, you're not like, this is mega bullish. There. Daily BOS. That's it. That's your signal. Because you've waited for the low, the high. the lower low, the shift, right? That's where we're here now. The higher low, and then the break of structure. I mean, this is classic. Low, high, lower low, higher high, or market structure break, higher low. That's when your confirmation comes. It doesn't mean it's always definitely going to work, but it's the best you can hope for, right? It's as close as you can get to having some confirmation. So if we just take all that off and just leave the actual charts on, where are we at here? If I take all this shit off. So where do we have that forming? I mean, we possibly don't even have it yet, which is a sign that we may see the market come down and have to consolidate, right? And maybe go lower and then above and then do it later on. Maybe that's it. Maybe it has to go low, sweep, back above, and then buy it there. Could be, this is only January, right? There's no reason why this stuff can't have another low before January. But if it's going to go higher, you have a low, you have a high. You have a higher low, we're up here now. If it forms a higher high, which it has done, and it forms this higher low, and it breaks out, that's when you can say, okay, this should be trending towards liquidity above and possibly even new highs. Otherwise, look at these as potentials to have corrective moves and go into some kind of sideways structure. Same as injective. I think injective's much further behind. Yeah. Like injective to me, moving into the lows. I mean, I don't see much here that I really like on injective outside of a very clear move, which would be not this. Like you don't want to see that because that kind of move is just a corrective. If we saw a consolidation or proper impulse move and then a pullback and then that next breakout, that's undeniable. At that point, you're undeniably bullish because you've low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and there. Now, of course, will it reject at that point? It could, but it then would have gone through all of this breakdown, bottoming, reaccumulation to then give you the best possibility for trade. And that's all these things, at least to me. I don't know, if you're an investor or holder, that's a different kind of approach. These things to me are just a trade. So because they're just a trade, timing them is important. It's important to get on at a point where you think that it can continue higher without any stopping. And that's almost always going to be in the very early stage of a new trend, which is there, that point. So Pepe done, Pendle done, Injective done. That's all done. GM. That was a relatively long one, but I wanted to get into some alts because it's potentially time. In summary, Bitcoin looks good. Bitcoin options are very bullish, both long-term and could have effects in the near term. Wouldn't be concerned that Sui and Aptos and Phantom are pumping. Nobody was long them anyway, so it's not like people are euphoric at this point. People are still licking their wounds, wondering why their Pepe bags aren't pumping. Some meme coins are pumping, obviously, but that's just on-chain activity starting to pick back up. This is the part where people mistake stuff bouncing off the lows for fucking complacency or just bounce or whatever. On-chain activity needs to pick up. Meme coins need to start moving again. People have to get interested again. This is all good. This is early stage interest. So what we either have next is one more sweep down, and I'll use total 3 for this. I think we either have one more sweep down to the lows, or we continue from here, which would mean we either consolidate and go higher. So we have a pullback and chop, or we have one more new low and then the same thing. And when I say new low, I just think that area, I don't think it has to go down to this. I think that was quite clearly an overextended, very emotionally leverage driven move, as you can tell by the fact that it's retested both sides. So I would say it's one of these two paths. This second path would be the oops, we went long too soon, people get bearish again. This would be the kind of choppy path where people expecting it to go up right away or frustrated for a week. And then once we start to break structure again, the upside, you can start to look at getting long. I mean, when you see these total 3 trends, and this is, I'll finish with this, I promise. The best use case for total 3, because it's not a coin you trade, you don't have to worry about stop losses or liquidity hunts or all this. It's not about that. It's a measure of the total market cap. excluding Bitcoin and ETH. So it's done by market cap rise and fall. So it aggregates all of the coins. So what you actually want to see are these steady little uptrends. What's that telling you? It's telling you the market is rising, but it's not like spikes, right? It's not getting euphoric. It's not big, massive one-day moves. Steady rise, steady rise, steady rise, which is a change from the steady falls. And you can see here, the spike too much in one day, not a good thing. The steady rise throughout the same phase, very good. So where are we now? We're in between. If you see it just grind past here, remember, it doesn't have to take these highs and drop back. It's not a fucking chart you trade. It's not an actual asset. So if you see total 3 over the next few weeks, just rising and rising, rising like that, just grinding above there and grinding higher, it's probably a sign that we're back into this, and we have some more upside ahead of us. So that's it. GM. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Now, I'm still here, although I will finish, because that was a long one, and I've got another stream to do for my masterclass and my council guys. Fuck. So what are we doing here? Weekly outlook. It's Sunday, 22nd of September. Perfect. Saving this over here. Now we're back. GM. G fucking M. All right. You've got a few hours left to watch the weekend workshop. Do not miss it. It will self-destruct tonight. Tomorrow morning, more likely. Early. And that's it. Thanks for joining, everyone. Why is Michael against leverage? Is he not using it himself? I fucking love leverage, Raz. Leverage is great. Leverage is excellent. But people don't understand how to use it. Now you do, because you're in blue belt. I use leverage all the time. I can't remember the last time I took a trade without leverage. But anyone who hears that and doesn't understand what leverage is, thinks that that's, holy shit, wow, you're like gambling about. No. Leverage is just simply a tool to manage your money better. That's all it is. If I don't want to put all my money on Bybit, I can put 10% of it on and use leverage to make up the difference if I'm trading bigger positions. That's all it is. The only thing that matters is how much you're risking per trade. If you've got $1,000, right? And you're risking $10 per trade, 1%. It doesn't matter if you use 1x leverage or 100x leverage. As long as your trade only loses $10 if you lose, leverage does not matter. It doesn't matter. The difference it will make is how much you have to have in your account, right? Because if you use no leverage, you'll have to have more capital in your account to be able to fulfill that $10 of risk, versus somebody who uses leverage that puts less in. That's the only use case. The only use case. Leverage is not a way to make more money. That's the most retarded thing ever. That is conflating. I'll do Andreas, I'll do like altcoins on Thursday stream. Anyone who thinks that leverage is a way to make more money is conflating luck for skill and completely ignoring the risk, because if you're using leverage to make more money, you're also putting more at risk. You're just playing volatility. That's not skill. That's not alpha. So, GM. Thanks for joining. GM. See you all tomorrow. 2 streams. Ask Michael and Blue Belt stream. GM.